The manager called the police on the hooded thug loitering in the lobby, unaware he was the billionaire she was waiting to impress, until the cleaning lady handed him a coffee and greeted him as Mr. Chairman in fluent Korean. "Get that street thug out of my VIP lounge immediately," shrieked Vanessa Sterling, the general manager of the prestigious Royal Onyx Hotel, throwing her hands up while the front desk staff scrambled in embarrassment. Korean tech mogul Min-ho Park sat completely still, looking like a tired college student in his oversized black hoodie and sneakers, his dark eyes radiating a dangerous mix of exhaustion and amusement. This is a story of unexpected justice, and I promise you by the end, you'll view the people who serve you very differently. Stay with me. Welcome to Obsidian Heart Caromance. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you are watching from. Let me tell you a story that changed the fate of this hotel forever. He wasn't speaking, but his fingers were flying across his tablet screen, likely reviewing the architectural blueprints of the building he had secretly just purchased. In the shadow of a massive marble pillar, Maya Robinson stood frozen, clutching a porcelain coffee cup she had been bringing to the concierge. At 28, she had perfected the art of blending into the wallpaper, a necessary survival skill for a former UN interpreter hiding from her past grief in a cleaning uniform. Security. "Get security down here now," Vanessa barked at the head of the front desk, who was already pale with anxiety. "I want this loiterer removed. He is ruining the aesthetic before the new owner arrives." The concierge whispered frantically to Vanessa, "Ma'am, I asked him to move. He just pointed at his headphones and ignored me. Maybe he's a delivery driver waiting for a pickup." Maya didn't move, her grip tightening on the saucer. She watched the Korean man's screen from the reflection in the mirror she was polishing. It wasn't a video game he was playing. It was a complex structural schematic labeled in a dialect of technical Korean she hadn't seen in years. It was the suppressed focus of a man analyzing his assets, a look Maya recognized instantly. Vanessa Sterling stomped her designer heels against the polished floor. "If he isn't out of this lobby in 10 minutes, I'm having him arrested for trespassing. Mr. Park is landing in 15 minutes, and everything must be perfect." "But Ms. Sterling," a junior receptionist whispered, eyeing the limited edition sneakers on the man's feet. "Those shoes. They cost more than my car. Are we sure he's homeless?" The man in the hoodie finally let out a sharp, frustrated sigh, muttering a phrase in his native tongue about the noise level being unprofessional. The staff looked blankly at one another, assuming it was slang, but Vanessa just scoffed, checking her watch with theatrical impatience. That was the moment Maya Robinson made her choice. She stepped out from behind the pillar, the steam rising from the coffee cup in her hands. Her walk was steady, her posture shifting from that of a terrified maid to the diplomat she used to be. She had watched the humiliation long enough. The crystal chandelier hanging in the center of the Royal Onyx lobby weighed 3 tons, cost more than a small island, and was currently the bane of Vanessa Sterling's existence. To her terrified, hypercritical eyes, it looked dusty. Not just dusty, but positively grimy, a hanging indictment of her ability to manage the most prestigious hotel in the city. "If I see a single smudge, a single fingerprint, or a single wilted petal on those lilies, you are all losing your weekend shifts until Christmas." Vanessa's voice ricocheted off the vaulted, gold-leafed ceilings. It was a voice that had been honed over a decade of climbing the corporate ladder, sharp enough to cut glass and loud enough to induce palpitations in the junior staff. The lobby was a hive of manic activity. Bellhops were polishing the brass luggage carts for the 3rd time that hour. The florists were misting the massive arrangements of white orchids with terrifying precision. The concierge team was standing at attention, sweating in their starch-stiffened uniforms, praying they wouldn't be the target of the general manager's next outburst. Vanessa checked her watch, a platinum piece that she was still paying off in installments, and felt a surge of bile rise in her throat. "He lands in 20 minutes, she muttered to herself, her thumb scrolling frantically through the acquisition email she had memorized weeks ago. 20 minutes until Judgment Day. The rumor mill had been churning for months. The Royal Onyx, a bastion of old-world luxury and slow-moving tradition, had been bought out. The buyer was Park Industries, a South Korean conglomerate known for two things: futuristic technological integration and ruthless, bloodletting restructuring. The new owner, Min-ho Park, was a ghost in the business world. There were no paparazzi photos of him stumbling out of clubs, no interviews in Forbes, no scandals. Just a reputation for walking into failing companies and liquidating the management teams before the ink on the contract was dry. Vanessa smoothed the lapels of her blazer, her eyes darting around the lobby like a surveillance camera. She needed this to go perfectly. She needed the lobby to look like a sanctuary of high-class exclusion. And then she saw it. Or rather, she saw him. Tucked away in the far corner of the exclusive VIP lounge, a space reserved for guests paying upwards of $2,000 a night, sat a figure that shattered Vanessa's carefully curated aesthetic. He was young, slouching deep into a high-backed velvet armchair that had been imported from Italy. He was wearing an oversized faded black hoodie with the hood pulled up over a mop of messy dark hair. His legs, clad in loose-fitting cargo joggers, were stretched out, and on his feet were a pair of chunky, colorful sneakers that looked like something a teenager would wear to a skate park. He had a tablet propped on his knees and large noise-canceling headphones over his ears. To Vanessa, he looked like an ink stain on a wedding dress. Who allowed that person into the VIP sector? Vanessa hissed, grabbing the arm of David, the head concierge, with a grip that threatened to leave a bruise. David flinched, swallowing hard as he adjusted his tie. "I'm not sure, Ms. Sterling. He walked in about 10 minutes ago. He moved so fast and he looked, well, he walked with confidence, so I assumed." "You assumed?" Vanessa mocked, her voice rising an octave. "We have a billionaire arriving in minutes to decide whether we keep our jobs or end up in the unemployment line, and you let a street thug use our fiber-optic Wi-Fi to play video games? Look at him, David. Does he look like he belongs here? He looks like he's waiting for a drug deal or charging his phone because he lives in a van down by the river." David looked at the young man. "I can ask him to move to the public waiting area." "No," Vanessa snapped, straightening her spine. "You'll probably apologize to him. I'll handle it. I need to vent some stress, and this little delinquent is going to be the perfect target." She began to march across the polished marble floor, her heels clicking a sharp, aggressive rhythm. She checked her reflection in the glass partition one last time, practicing her authoritative yet welcoming smile for Mr. Park, before letting it drop into a mask of pure disdain directed at the hooded intruder. She didn't see a human being. She saw a problem. And Vanessa Sterling prided herself on eliminating problems. 30 feet away, partially obscured by a massive marble pillar, Maya Robinson was trying to make herself invisible. It was an art form she had perfected over the last 3 years. In her gray housekeeping uniform, with her hair pulled back into a tight, practical bun and her shoulders hunched forward, she was part of the scenery. Guests looked through her, not at her. Managers barked orders at her without ever learning her name. She sprayed the glass cleaner onto the large decorative mirror near the lounge entrance, her arm moving in perfect, circular rhythms. Wax on, wax off, she thought bitterly. The smell of lemon and ammonia was a comfort. It was the smell of anonymity. As long as she was cleaning, no one asked her questions. No one asked her why a woman with a double major in international business and Asian studies was scrubbing toilets. No one asked her about the fiancé she had buried, or the grief that had made the high-pressure world of UN interpretation impossible to bear. From her vantage point, she had a clear view of the reflection of the man in the hoodie. She watched Vanessa approaching him like a shark sensing blood in the water. Most people would have withered under Vanessa's glare from across the room. But the man didn't flinch. He didn't even look up. Maya squinted slightly, polishing the same spot on the mirror so she could linger. She looked past his shoulder in the reflection, focusing on the screen of the tablet resting on his knees. Vanessa had assumed he was playing games or watching movies. But Maya's eyes, trained to read documents rapidly during high-stakes trade negotiations, picked up the details instantly. The screen was filled with complex, glowing blue schematics. It was a 3D architectural rendering. Maya recognized the layout immediately. It was the HVAC and structural stress analysis of the Royal Onyx itself. But it was the text overlay that made her pause, her rag freezing mid-circle. The notes hovering over the blueprints were written in Korean Hangul. But it wasn't the conversational Korean one might learn from K-dramas or travel apps. It was a specific, highly technical dialect of engineering shorthand. Structural integrity compromised in Sector 4. Renovation budget underestimated by 200%. Load-bearing efficiency at 60%. Maya's heart skipped a beat. A loiterer didn't read structural engineering reports. A street thug didn't analyze the load-bearing efficiency of the building he was sitting in. He wasn't stealing Wi-Fi. He was inspecting the bones of the hotel. "Excuse me." Vanessa's voice cut through the air, shrill and demanding. The man didn't move. He tapped the screen, zooming in on a ventilation shaft, his finger tracing a line of red code. "Hey." Vanessa clapped her hands loudly, right next to his ear, a gesture so rude it made Maya wince. The man slowly slid his headphones down to his neck. The movement was languid, deliberate. He looked up, and for the first time, Maya saw his face clearly in the reflection. He was striking. He had sharp, elegant features, high cheekbones, and a jawline that could cut glass. But what struck Maya most was the exhaustion etched into his face. He had dark circles under his eyes, his skin was pale, and his lips were dry. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in 48 hours. He looked jet-lagged, dehydrated, and utterly unimpressed by the woman looming over him. "Can I help you?" he asked. His voice was deep, raspy from disuse, and accented with a flawless American cadence that betrayed nothing of his origin. It was the voice of someone who had gone to boarding schools in New England, but spent his summers in Seoul. "You need to leave," Vanessa stated, crossing her arms and popping her hip. "This area is reserved for paying guests and high-net-worth individuals. The public library is 3 blocks down if you need free internet to download your rap music or whatever it is you're doing." The man blinked slowly. He looked around the empty lounge, noting the 20 empty chairs, then looked back at Vanessa. "I'm comfortable here. And the hotel appears to be at 20% occupancy in the lobby. I'm hardly taking up space." "I don't care if you're comfortable," Vanessa sneered, leaning down until she was invading his personal space. "We have a VIP arrival in 10 minutes. I am sanitizing the lobby. That means removing trash. Now, are you going to walk out, or do I need to have you dragged out by security? I'm sure the local police would love to search your pockets." Maya stopped wiping the mirror entirely. Her breath hitched. The racism and classism were so casual, so practiced. She watched the man's hand tighten on the edge of his tablet. His knuckles turned white for a fraction of a second. He wasn't angry in the way a man gets ready to fight. He looked disappointed. He let out a sigh, the sound of a man who had hoped, just for once, that the world would prove him wrong about human nature. "Sanitizing," the man repeated, testing the word on his tongue as if it tasted sour. "Is that what you call it? Interesting choice of words." "Security is on the way," Vanessa threatened, checking her watch again. "You have 5 minutes to vanish. If you're still here when Mr. Park arrives, you're going to jail." She spun on her heel, flipping her hair, and stormed back toward the front desk to scream at a florist for placing a lily at the wrong angle, leaving the man alone in the silence of the lounge. He didn't leave. He didn't curse. He simply rubbed his temples, pinching the bridge of his nose as if trying to massage away a migraine. He coughed slightly, a dry hacking cough that rattled in his chest. He looked at the empty table in front of him, then licked his dry lips. He was thirsty. Maya looked down at her cleaning cart. It was filled with rags, sprays, and trash bags, the tools of her trade. But on the bottom shelf, tucked behind a box of paper towels, was her personal thermos. It was a stainless steel bottle filled with premium baricha, roasted barley tea. She brewed it herself every morning before her shift. It was warm, nutty, and soothing, a staple in Korean households for fatigue, digestion, and hydration. It wasn't just a drink, it was comfort in a cup. She looked back at the man. Her instinct, honed by 3 years of hiding, was to stay still. To be the furniture. To keep her job, pay her rent, and go home to her empty apartment where the only thing waiting for her was a cat and a memory of a life she used to have. Intervening was dangerous. Vanessa was on a warpath, and Maya was expendable. But something about the man's expression tugged at a dormant part of her soul. It was the isolation. He was surrounded by gold leaf and marble, yet he was being treated like a disease. He was the only person in the room who seemed to care about the building itself, judging by the blueprints, yet he was being evicted from it. And he was thirsty. Without letting herself think about the consequences, without letting the fear of unemployment paralyze her, Maya reached for the thermos. She grabbed a clean porcelain cup and saucer from her service tray, one intended for room service, and poured the steaming amber liquid. The aroma of roasted barley wafted up, earthy and grounding. She placed a crisp linen napkin on the saucer, took a deep breath, and stepped out from behind the pillar. The sound of her sensible work shoes on the marble was steady, a counter-rhythm to the chaotic clicking of Vanessa's heels in the distance. She walked toward the velvet chair. The man had put his headphones back on, closing his eyes, resigned to the hostility of the environment, perhaps waiting for the police to arrive so he could get it over with. Maya stood by his table. She didn't clear her throat. She simply waited. When he didn't move, she gently placed the cup on the low marble table next to him. The clink the china against the stone was soft, but it made him open one eye. He looked at the cup, steam curling into the air-conditioned chill. Then he looked up at her. He saw a black woman in a maid's uniform that was slightly too big for her. He saw hands that were chapped from chemicals but steady. He looked into her face and saw eyes that were kind, but filled with a fierce, sharp intelligence that didn't match her station. Maya stepped back and bowed. It wasn't a servant's bow. It wasn't the nod of a waitress dropping off a check. It was a culturally precise incline of the head and waist, angled perfectly at 15 degrees, the casual but deeply polite bow one gives to a superior in a business setting. It was a bow that said, "I see you, and I respect your position." "Sajangnam," she said softly. The word hung in the air between them. Sajangnam. Boss. President. Chairman. The word felt heavy and sweet on her tongue after years of English silence. It was a word from her past life. The man froze. His eyes snapped wide open, the lethargy vanishing instantly. He sat up straighter, pulling his headphones down again, fixing his gaze on hers with an intensity that made her breath hitch. She continued, keeping her voice low so only he could hear, ensuring Vanessa was out of earshot. She spoke in formal, standard Korean, the language of boardrooms and diplomacy. Josong hamnida, gimel yul duriosio. Igosian baricha imnida. Yohaing euro pagonhasil tenda, magi jo yul giamnida. I apologize for the intrusion. This is barley tea. You must be tired from your travels. This will be good for your throat. Minho Park stared at her. For a moment, the bustling hotel lobby, the screaming manager, the impending corporate takeover, it all faded away. He wasn't the billionaire chairman about to gut a company, and she wasn't the invisible maid. They were just two people sharing a language in a foreign land. He reached out and took the cup. His fingers brushed the ceramic, feeling the warmth. He brought it to his nose and inhaled. The smell of the roasted barley hit him, triggering a wave of nostalgia so potent it nearly knocked the wind out of him. It smelled like home. It smelled like safety. A genuine smile broke across his face, transforming him. The harsh lines of exhaustion softened, and suddenly, he looked like a young man who was simply grateful. "Gamsahamnida, thank you," he replied, his voice dropping to a softer register, stripping away the American accent to reveal his native tone. "Hangak mal aju jal hasanio. You speak Korean very well." "Jogiam hal jalai io, I speak a little," she demurred, using the humble form automatically. Min-ho took a sip. The warm liquid coated his dry throat, soothing the cough that had been plaguing him since he left Incheon. He looked at her over the rim of the cup, his dark eyes searching hers. "You knew," Min-ho switched to English, his curiosity burning brighter than his fatigue. "How did you know who I am?" "I haven't told anyone I'm here. My own board doesn't know I'm in the building." "The blueprints," Maya whispered, nodding toward his tablet where the blue schematics still glowed. "And, you look like a man who is deciding if this building is worth saving. Most guests just look at the room service menu or the pool hours. You were looking at the HVAC stress loads." Min-ho lowered the cup, a chuckle escaping his lips, a rich, genuine sound that seemed to surprise even him. "And what do you think?" he asked, leaning forward as if consulting an equal. "Is it worth saving?" Maya looked over at the reception desk, where Vanessa was now berating a bellboy until he looked ready to cry. She looked at the terrified staff, the beautiful but cold architecture. Then she looked back at Min-ho. "The bones are good, sir," she said honestly. "The foundation is strong. But the heart needs a transplant." Min-ho took another sip of the tea, maintaining eye contact. He nodded slowly. "I think I just found the heart," he murmured. "Get away from him." The fragile bubble of connection shattered instantly. Vanessa Sterling was marching back across the lobby, and this time, she wasn't alone. She was flanked by 2 uniformed police officers and the hotel's head of security, a burly man named Henderson who looked like he would rather be anywhere else. Maya instinctively stepped back, reverting to her training. She clutched her hands in front of her apron, lowering her eyes. But she didn't leave. She stood near Min-ho's chair, a silent sentinel refusing to abandon her post. "Officers, this is the man," Vanessa announced, pointing a manicured finger at Min-ho as if identifying a murderer. "And this maid is harassing him after I explicitly gave orders for him to be removed. I want him arrested for trespassing and theft of services. He's stealing our Wi-Fi and refusing to vacate the premises." The police officers looked bored. They scanned Min-ho, seeing the hoodie and the sneakers, and made the calculation. "Sir," the older officer said, placing a hand on his belt. "You need to come with us. The management wants you off the property. If you leave now, we won't press charges." Min-ho didn't stand up. He placed the tea saucer down on the table with agonizing slowness. He didn't look at the police. His gaze was fixed on Vanessa, cold and unyielding. "I am finishing my tea," he said calmly. "It was a gift. You are finished right now." Vanessa lunged forward, her patience snapping. In a fit of blind rage, she grabbed the cup of tea Maya had just served. With a violent swipe of her hand, she knocked it off the table. The sound was sickening. The porcelain shattered against the marble floor, exploding into sharp white shards. The warm amber liquid splashed everywhere, all over the velvet rug, onto the polished floor, and significantly, all over Min-ho's expensive limited edition sneakers. The lobby went silent. Even the ambient music seemed to stop. Maya gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Ms. Sterling." "You shut up." Vanessa spun on Maya, her eyes bulging with adrenaline. "You are fired. Do you hear me? Fired. Get your things and get out. I saw you conspiring with this vagrant. I bet you let him in, didn't you? Is he your boyfriend? Are you running a scam in my hotel? Offering free drinks to your trashy friends? He is a guest." Maya cried out, stepping between Vanessa and Min-ho. Her voice shook, but she stood her ground, spreading her arms slightly as if to shield him. "He hasn't done anything wrong. He was just sitting there. You are making a mistake, a terrible mistake." "The only mistake I made was hiring someone like you," Vanessa sneered, stepping closer to Maya. "Officers, remove her too. She's creating a disturbance and refusing a direct order from management." The second officer sighed and reached for Maya's arm. "Ma'am, Come on. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Maya flinched, closing her eyes, waiting for the humiliation of being dragged out of the only job that had kept a roof over her head. She braced herself for the grip. But the hand never touched her. A blur of motion flashed in her peripheral vision. A hand clad in a black hoodie sleeve shot out, gripping the police officer's wrist with surprising, ironclad strength. Minho stood up. He wasn't slouching anymore. He unfolded his frame, standing at his full height of 6'1", looming over the group. The air around him changed instantly. The exhaustion vanished, replaced by a cold, terrifying authority that radiated from him like heat from a furnace. He didn't look like a boy in a hoodie anymore. He looked like a titan. "Do not touch her," Minho said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a gavel striking wood. It was a command, not a request. "Sir, let go of the officer," the second policeman warned, his hand dropping to his taser. "Step back." Minho released the officer's wrist with a shove, turning his full attention to the general manager. "Vanessa Sterling," Minho said, reading her name tag. He spoke her name like a curse. "You have damaged my shoes. You have shattered the tea that was graciously given to me. And you have just fired the only competent employee I have encountered in this entire building. Who do you think you are?" Vanessa laughed nervously, taking a step back but trying to maintain her bravado. She looked at the police for backup. "He's crazy. He's threatening me. Take him away before he hurts someone." Minho looked at the stain on his shoe, then back at Vanessa. "I am not the one hurting this hotel, Ms. Sterling. You are."